What happened after Elijah's confrontation with the prophets of Baal? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Kings on Walking Through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 41 to 46. Before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 41. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Kings chapter 18, beginning at verse 41. Then Elijah said to Ahab, "Go up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of abundance of rain." So Ahab went up to eat and drink. And Elijah went up to the top of Carmel. Then he bowed down on the ground and put his face between his knees and said to his servant, "Go up now, look toward the sea." So he went up and looked and said, "There is nothing." And 7 times he said, "Go again." Then it came to pass the 7th time that he said, "There is a cloud as small as the man's hand rising out of the sea." So he said, "Go up, say to Ahab, prepare your chariot and go down before the rain stops you." Now it happened in the meantime that the sky became black with clouds and wind, and there was a heavy rain. So Ahab rode away and went to Jezreel. Then the hand of the Lord came upon Elijah, and he girded up his loins and ran ahead of Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. In this chapter, we've been studying about Elijah's challenge to the prophets of Baal. This challenge actually had roots in the events that happened in chapter 17 concerning the drought in Israel caused by God as a result of Israel's idol worship, including worshiping Baal. Elijah wanted Israel to know that God was the cause of this drought, just as he was going to be the cause at the end of the drought, and that he is the only true God, with all others being frauds. So Elijah's challenge to the prophets of Baal was to offer a sacrifice to their God, but have Baal light the fire of the altar. If Baal could do it, then he is God. However, from the account here in 1 Kings 18, we know that Baal could not do it, for Baal was not God. And no amount of jumping up and down, chanting or shouting could make it so either. Elijah, on the other hand, set up an altar to the true God, prepared the sacrifice, but before he prayed to God, he had the sacrifice and the altar thoroughly soaked with water, so there could be no accusations of trickery. And when Elijah prayed to God, it took just one prayer. No effort on Elijah's part, for God sent fire down from heaven, consumed the sacrifice, as well as the entire altar and the water too, showing himself to be the one true God. Israel recognized this too, even if only momentarily. With the prophets of Baal shown to be frauds, they were commanded by Elijah to be executed, just as the law of Moses commanded. All of this brings us down to verse 41. Elijah turns to Ahab and tells him to go up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of an abundant rain. As of yet, though, there were no clouds, no rain on the horizon. But Elijah knew what he was about to do, for once Ahab left, Elijah went with his servant to the top of Mount Carmel and bowed down to pray. He then asked his servant to go and look towards the sea, for, as you can see on the screen now, from the top of Mount Carmel, one can see the Mediterranean. What did the servant see? Nothing. Elijah asked him to look again, and again he saw nothing. Elijah did this 7 times, and behold, on the 7th time a cloud as small as a man's hand began rising out of the sea. Clouds containing rain was something Israel hadn't seen in over 3 years, but this was the proof that when Elijah prayed to God for rain, that rain came. He told his servant to descend the mountain and go to Ahab to tell him to prepare his chariot and go before the rain stops him. And so the servant did as Elijah asked. Meanwhile, the sky became black with clouds and wind, and there was a heavy rain as Ahab rode away to Jezreel, which is about 26 kilometers or 16 miles to the southeast of Mount Carmel. In chapter 21, we're going to find Ahab had a house in Jezreel, apart from the palace which was in Samaria. With the rain coming from heaven, vindicating Elijah's faith in God, I'm sure Elijah thought he had won. He had brought Israel back to God by the word of the Lord, and now the idol worship would fully be abandoned. By the hand of the Lord, Elijah even ran down after the chariot of Ahab and beat him to Jezreel, something that would be impossible if the hand of the Lord had not been with him. While we're not sure what Elijah's actual message would have been, it most likely had something to do with charging Ahab to personally repent and turn to God and bring the people along with you. Finally, after almost 60 years of false idol worship, the people of Israel would turn to God. But much like it would be later with the one who came in the spirit of Elijah before the coming of Christ, John the Baptist, some would turn to God, like some of those Israelites who witnessed God's power at Mount Carmel. But the vast majority would not. And part of that vast majority would be Ahab and Jezebel. In fact, Elijah's life would be in danger because of his actions that day. Something that we'll cover, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. Before closing, though, we should note that today Christians cannot call down fire from heaven. God has not given us that power. But he has given us the power of his word to go out and teach the gospel of Jesus Christ. The gospel is what will convict the hearts of men and women, not our words, no matter how eloquent we may be. May we therefore have the courage of Elijah to reveal God to a world in desperate need of him, so that we not only save our souls, but the souls of the people round about us. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1 to 10, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.